The views and opinions expressed on this broadcast are those of its participants and do not reflect the views and opinions of any employer, MSP, sponsor, advertiser, or vendor. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of All Things MSP Live. Thanks for joining us this evening. We really do appreciate it. Tonight's episode, we're going to talk about the new State of Cybersecurity 2025 report from CompTIA. Now, I've gone over this very briefly because I really wanted you guys to get my reaction to a lot of the data, a lot of the content that they're sharing here. Now, I do think that there's a lot of great information that you're going to be able to use to generate opportunities with your clients and with some new clients. So we'll get to that in a few minutes. But before we do that, I do want to go through a couple of things here. Number one, we have released the first 2 episodes of the Ideal Client Profile Masterclass. There are 3 parts to this series. The third part will come out on Friday. And I think that this is one of the best pieces of educational content we've put together. In fact, this whole masterclass series is something new that we've started. Of course, we did sales funnels with Tim Coach about 2 weeks ago. That is still, going strong. A lot of great information in that one. So if you haven't checked that out, go check out the YouTube channel. Both videos on the sales funnel series is there. And then, of course, like I said, the first 2 in the Ideal Client Profile series with Tim Fitzpatrick. I don't know, we got a Tim thing going on here. But anyway, it's really because we've also included some worksheets, and this is a really great way to figure out who your ideal client is based on the clients that you have now. That's the important part, and that's one of the things that Tim walks you through and shows you how to do. And I just think it's definitely the most important thing you can do before you start spending money on marketing, because this will make you hyper focused, which will make your marketing hyper efficient when you're trying to get new partners and get the right partners, because that's a huge part of it. All right. As usual, we did drop a podcast this week. This week's podcast is about compliance and whether or not it's a new opportunity for MSPs. I believe it is. I think when you listen to the podcast, you'll get a good idea of why that is and how you as an MSP, regardless of size, can kind of get into that compliance side of the market. There are a lot of people helping MSPs right now do that. We've got a great sponsor, Compliance Scorecard, who is helping MSPs of all different sizes do that. And it's really something that, as we see more regulation coming into the industry, is something I really think you need to focus on, not just for the revenue opportunity, but also to mitigate the risk, right? Because all the risk that you reduce for your clients is also risk that you're reducing for yourself. All right. Now, I do want to plug All Things MSP for a second here. We do have a new 2025 sponsorship prospectus ready for any vendors who are interested in sponsoring All Things MSP for the next 2025 year. I will also say that prospectus, if you sign up, if you sign up before the end of October, you get November and December for free. If you sign up before the end of November, you get December for free. So if you're a vendor and you're interested in sponsoring All Things MSP, please reach out to me and I will go ahead and send you that prospectus. All right. Also important, All Things MSP will be at Really, Eric, don't you do this every once in a while? Okay, so to start that again, All Things MSP will be at IT Nation Connect in November. We'll be there the entire time. We're going to have some fun. We're going to be doing interviews like we normally do outside. I'm not sure where they're going to place us this time. Last time at IT Nation Secure, we had a great location right outside the trade show floor, but we'll be doing those interviews again. So if you're a vendor, if you're an MSP, please reach out, because I'm going ahead and putting people on a priority list right now so that I kind of do it on first come, first serve basis. So go ahead and set that time up now. But more importantly, if you have not signed up to go to IT Nation Connect yet, we do have a discount code there. It's I think it's all things 250. I can't actually, it's too small in the teleprompter for me to read. So go ahead and get it from there. I will go ahead and attach it to this. I'll comment on these posts later on this evening after I have finished up the live stream tonight. And Uncle Marv is up after us tonight. So he is doing his live stream tonight. And he's going to be talking about TechCon Unplugged, as well as kind of Helena, the storm, all the things that go along with that. Jason Miller, it looks like he's going to be one of his guests tonight. Jason is an MSP that I've known for quite a while. He's actually in a part of Tennessee affected by the storm, not that far from my mother-in-law. In fact, Jason's helped my mother-in-law out with some things when I couldn't remotely. So definitely Western North Carolina, Eastern Tennessee, Florida. We all know people who are affected by this storm. And, if we can help, we definitely want to help, and interested to see what the effects are from Jason's point of view. All right, so tonight's topic is the State of Cybersecurity 2025. Now, this is a report that CompTIA puts out every year, and it's an interesting report, like most of their reports. And the advantage for MSPs, I really think, is to take this data and see what you can do to apply it to your business. So what I'm going to do is I basically have this queued up. I have it ready to display on the screen. I'll get my ugly mug off to the side in just a second. And we're going to go through and I'm going to walk through this as if I were an MSP still, and talk about how I would take advantage or dig deeper into some of these things to find out how I would actually do them. Now, I should probably go ahead and, before we dive into that, I should do some sponsor stuff. So here we go. Elevate your IT managed service provider business with SuperOps, the all-in-one platform that integrates RMM and PSA. Powered by AI-driven insights and automation, SuperOps helps you stay ahead, streamline operations, and boost efficiency. Are you ready for operational excellence? Find out more at atmsp.link/SuperOps. If you're struggling with the complexity of Microsoft 365 deployment, management, and automation, it's time to check out CoreView. Created by MSPs for MSPs like you, they help you with the end-to-end Microsoft 365 administration from the moment you set up a new tenant. Packed with things like unified visibility and control of all your tenants from a single UI, to powerful no-code automation engine, baseline tenant configurations, drift remediation, and much more, you can supercharge your productivity and do even the most time-consuming tasks with just one click. Work effortlessly and deliver best practices to your customers today with CoreView. To learn more, visit atmsp.link/CoreView. All right, everybody. Now, one thing I do want to say is that when I do these episodes where it's just me and I don't have another guest, I'm really hoping that you in the audience become that guest. And so tonight I do have the chat window open. So if you do have things that you'd like to share, or you have questions as we go through the State of Cybersecurity report, I would love to hear them and love to respond to them and have an interactive conversation about this. So if you're here, go ahead and just let me know that you're here in the chat. And that way I know who's here, and maybe I can call some people out. I don't know. I don't know if I'll do that. That's kind of, but anyway, okay, let's switch the screens here and go ahead and put me down to the side there. Okay, so this is basically the big number page. We've got the cover page, but this is the big number page where it comes out and basically tells the big numbers around what they found inside of the cybersecurity report. So $200 billion is the projected global cybersecurity product revenue in 2028. So we're going to see a lot of growth, and there's a lot of market share there, right? For MSPs to be supporting their clients with cybersecurity offerings, services, products, tools, etc. Now, Yeah, 470,000. I can't even believe that number of US-based job openings with cybersecurity related skills. Now, this is going to be one of the themes. Like I said, I kind of went through this ahead of time just a little bit to prepare. This is where I think MSPs can benefit, especially those larger MSPs who are doing co-managed IT into larger businesses, because those larger businesses don't have the cybersecurity expertise and skills to do these things in-house. If you as an MSP do, then you can offer these services on an outsourced basis to those larger companies. And so I think that that is a real opportunity. And I think there's some more data in here that we'll dive into later that talks about that a little bit more. Now, the next number is 47% cite emergence of generative AI as a driver for cybersecurity action. This one's interesting to me, and I can't wait till we get to the actual data for this, because I'm interested to find out are they afraid that AI, because AI has the ability to do things much faster than a human, especially when it comes to coding, right? Is this something where we're seeing generative AI being leveraged by bad actors in order to cause problems? Or is it the fact that people are adopting AI and they're afraid of data being leaked out in the world? So that's definitely something that we'll look into, provided that the data is there. 78% cite cybersecurity as a high priority at their organization. This is another interesting one to me because, as we all know, cybersecurity has been one of those things that I think until recently really has been a harder sell. And I think that there's some data in this report that kind of gives you an insight as to why. And that insight as to why can actually help you build an offering and a talk track and a sales process around cybersecurity. All right, two more. 59% report a severe or moderate impact from cybersecurity incidents in the past year. This is not going away, folks. 60% almost of the people who were polled for this survey reported a severe or moderate impact from a cybersecurity incident in just the past year. That means more than 1 in every 2 people were affected by a severe or moderate incident. So this is definitely something everybody needs, even if they are trying to put their head in the sand. They need it because statistics, they're going to get hit at some point. I mean, if it's 59% in 1 year, what is it over 2 years? Right? It becomes dramatically higher. Okay, 56% plan to pursue training for cybersecurity workforce to close skill gaps. I think this probably applies more to the enterprise space or to the internal IT space, and not surprised because if they invest in that, they don't have to outsource. But I think there's a period of time here, like I said before, with the number above the 470,000 open job recs in cybersecurity. I think there's an opportunity for MSPs to do outsourcing at the moment. All right. I'm going to skip the introduction. You guys can read this if you want. Actually, let me go ahead and do that now. I'm going to go ahead and put the link to that in the chat. All right. There's the link to the report so everybody can access that. Okay. I'm actually going to be asking some people at CompTIA about this chart because obviously I didn't look at it very long, but I'm not sure exactly what all of this is saying. So, you know what? I'm going to probably, I think I get it now. 2023 is the center part of the circle, and 2024 is probably the outside of the circle. So this is probably a survey question that they did both years. And I'll get some clarification on that from CompTIA, but that's probably the difference here. And maybe they added some other categories, I'm not sure. But obviously you can see here that there's some overall information around the state of cybersecurity and their organizational state of cybersecurity. And the improving dramatically and the completely satisfactory, especially when you combine them with the mostly satisfactory and the improving slightly, I think are actually pretty good numbers, right? Um, on the overall state, you're looking at 70%. At the organizational state, you're looking at again 70%. So not bad there in terms of how people are viewing the overall state. Drivers for cybersecurity point to a wide range of potential actions. Um, yeah, the emergence of generative AI has a lot to do with security, and we've talked about AI on the podcast. We talked about it with Corey Kirkendall several months ago. That was a great live stream. So if you haven't seen that, go back and watch that on how you guys should be leveraging AI and making sure that you're covering AI so that it doesn't present a risk. This emergent, the emergence of generative AI, it's a new technology. Anytime we have a new technology, bad actors are going to try and take advantage of it. And so it is something, it's a high profile emerging trend, just like they say here, that needs to be understood. And so that's, something that's actionable, something that you should be looking at for your clients. And by the way, one of the best ways that you can do that for your clients is find out how they're using AI in their business, because, a lot of AI tools are free. And so they may have employees who are using them, but don't necessarily know how to use them in a responsible way. So that is something where you come in as the technology provider and provide that education. Just like phishing education, same thing. Variety of attacks continue to go up, especially as we have new technologies like AI. IoT, still relatively new to the space, and that obviously being attacked. Reliance on data. I think this is more of a risk and is something that everybody should look at, because data is one of those things that we now rely on day by day. We almost no longer keep things on paper anymore. So if we don't have access to the data, we're not working if we don't have access to the data. And there's also the risk of that data being breached and released and so forth. Scale of attacks continues to arise. So that's something that always needs to be looked at. Breadth of skills needed. Obviously, new technologies coming out, new skills have to be built. So, that's a hurdle. Nation state attacks, I think that one's going to be a concern for a while. Quantifying cybersecurity progress. It's interesting. I was having a conversation today about measuring things that are hard to measure. And sometimes you have to measure it in, the behavior of things, how people are behaving around things. And especially since people are one of the biggest risks in cybersecurity, obviously that's hard to measure. But if you're doing things like cybersecurity training, phishing training, those kinds of things, you're going to have some data on that. So that data helps. And compliance with regulation. This is one of those where obviously not everybody has to meet a compliance requirement. And that really drops even lower when we're talking about the smaller size businesses that are run by MSPs, So, and not just run by MSPs, but the clients of MSPs, because they're smaller, right? However, we're seeing more and more things like FTC come into car dealerships, come into CPA firms and things like that. And I think you're just going to see more of that happening. I'm actually surprised that this did not come up higher on the list. Forgot my water over on the other table. All right. And then obviously privacy concerns. That one's going to be around. Again, I'm surprised that that one's not higher because I absolutely think it should be. And then they break this report down into business architecture, application architecture, data architecture, and technology architecture. I'm not going to be covering all of them tonight. I'm going to be covering the ones that I think are relative to you guys. And actually, I did take some notes. So let me grab those real quick. make sure I'm not missing anything for you guys that I took a look at before. Oh, got to rearrange my desk a little bit. Hold on. Okay, this is something that I wanted to talk about on this last set of data that I just scrolled through. If you look at these, a lot of these are outside factors, right? Generative AI, the variety of attacks, the scale of attacks, things like that are outside factors that are affecting cybersecurity for your clients. There are other things that are internal factors that you should look at, and things like reliance on data, because a lot of that, the risk of data not being available, can be mitigated by the things that you put in place to make sure that they have that stability and that access to that data. The breadth of skills needed, again, that's training. And depending on your level of involvement with your clients, I would say that technology training is not necessarily something that you do, but absolutely something that you recommend and facilitate. Not meaning you teach it, but meaning that you guide them towards the right training so that they're doing the right things. Quantifying cybersecurity progress. Again, that's an internal thing. You can collect the data so that you can measure your progress towards cybersecurity compliance. And again, one of the things I think that compliance, because some of it is optional at this point, especially in these stages, and again with privacy concerns as well, the financial impact I don't think is there yet, and I think that's why it probably hasn't caught on as much. All right, glad I grabbed my notes because those were definitely things that I wanted to talk about. All right, so the next set of data here is the cybersecurity takes the top spot for perceived organizational priority. And obviously you can see that cybersecurity is far and away one of the highest priorities for these businesses. And I think this is important. Now, I'd love to know here what last year's numbers were. And if I did a deeper dive into this, I would have pulled last year's report. But 78% means that it is higher by, what is that? That's 15% than IT support, which is what most MSPs traditionally are providing. Now, because this is top of mind more than it ever has been, I think that makes it a little bit easier to sell it. Now, I am going to say something, and I hate to do this because this podcast has not been released yet, and it'll probably not come out for another week or two. But we had a conversation with Wayne Selk when we recorded this podcast. And, looking at this, it's something where you have to get your house in order first before you can go out and sell this to clients. And even when you do, and this is a conversation that I think we're going to dive deeper into in a later podcast, is how do you come back to clients and tell them they need to buy more security? And they say, why haven't you done it already? I think that's probably a hard conversation to have. And I think a lot of MSPs may be avoiding that conversation because they don't have their own house in order. So do us a favor, go ahead, get your own house in order first. Okay. The other reason I think cybersecurity, by the way, is 78% is it's not entrenched. It hasn't been standardized yet. And so it is something that represents risk that people know they need to do something about. And that's why they're more worried about it than some of the other things. A lot of these other things I would consider entrenched. Everything on this list, actually, except for artificial intelligence. And I think artificial intelligence is only so low because it is so much newer. I think as we move forward and we understand the risks around artificial intelligence, I think that's where that number will start to increase. Okay. Our next piece of data says budget issues show that cybersecurity remains difficult for organizations to resolve. Um, and basically, two things here, right? They recognize there's a skill gap, which, again, if you're an MSP with those skills, perfect opportunity to outsource those skills to the people who need them, right? Because especially when you're talking about smaller businesses, even when you get up into medium-sized businesses, right? They probably don't need those skills full time. So offering them on a fractional basis makes sense. And a lot of that is because lack of budget, right? And, obviously, lack of budget being the second biggest complicating factor in cybersecurity initiatives, lack of budget, if you look at a lot of different services, regardless of whether it's IT or not, you'll see that a lot of times when they don't budget for something, they'll still spend the money, but they spend it outsourcing rather than a permanent employee, so to speak. Let's take that as an example. And so if they're complaining about lack of budget, there is a chance that they're going to want some type of external solution that they can just pay for temporarily. Maybe it's a cybersecurity project that they need to have done. Maybe they want an assessment and they don't have the internal skills to do that. That's something that you guys can come up with an offering for. And, if you look at the numbers here, the 14% and the 36%, hard to determine cybersecurity allocations, again, because they don't have the internal skills to make those determinations, and difficult to procure funds, or budgets are flat or decreasing because of the economy, whatever. They may see, again, the opportunity to hire an outsourced something that they don't have to commit to for as long term as say full-time internal resources. All right. Where's our next piece of data? Okay. This is going to take us to a conversation that we're having all over the place, not just in cybersecurity, when it comes to MSPs. And that is the importance of MSPs designing for outcomes rather than just providing outsourced IT services. Now, I just said you need to outsource stuff, yes, but you need to outsource for business outcomes, not just for IT services. And so if you look at that 20% down there at the bottom, they need to view cybersecurity not as an IT problem, but as an organizational problem. And that's one of the ways that you can frame this conversation. You can frame it around an organizational problem rather than just an IT problem. Okay, AI has potential to automate and accelerate cybersecurity efforts. So just as the bad actors are using AI to accelerate their bad acting, a lot of companies are starting to use AI to improve cybersecurity. And I think there is a big opportunity here because AI is very good at recognizing patterns, recognizing things happening over and over again, like an attack. So obviously, I think this is going to change the way we approach cybersecurity. And I think what an MSP needs to take away from this is there are actually already tools, and there are going to be more tools coming out that help you better defend, better lower the risk of your clients with AI. And so you need to be out there looking for these tools. And I'm just gonna get up on a soapbox here for a second. This is why you need that extra 10, 15% in your price, so that you can swap out tools when you need to, rather than doing it at a customer's renewal. If you can go ahead and do it at any time you need to, it avoids that conversation that I talked about earlier, where you go into a client and you tell them they have to buy more because they haven't been properly protected. And they go, well, why haven't you been properly protecting me? You cannot answer with, well, you weren't paying for it. That's a hard answer to swallow. And it's much better if you already have those dollars built in so that you can go ahead and swap out tools for better tools when the time arises, right? And be able to do that and just know that you're doing the right thing for your client. You're doing the right thing for your risk. And that way, and then you just raise their prices every year to make sure that you're accounting for the new tools and you still have 10 to 15% on top of that in order to apply those new tools as necessary. Soapbox speech ended. Okay. Let's see what else we got here. Data architecture. This does talk to the data is a far greater point of emphasis today compared to 2 years ago. And I think that's just perception. I think we knew data was more important. I think data is probably more at risk now than it has been. What's interesting about this to me is that the understanding of how important data is today is basically the same across the entire swath of size of firm, right? Small and medium, which here their definition is less than 500, 86% say it's an emphasis. 500 to 5,000 is 89%, and 5,000 plus is 87%. I mean, those are all within a statistical margin of error apart from each other. And so I think that is really telling in terms of how everybody understands how important data is today. Okay. There are some things I took notes on, some things I didn't, because I think there's more for MSPs to get out of it. On this one, one of the things it talked about here is I want to highlight this technical staff working overtime, technical staff diverted from normal tasks, and business staff losing productivity. All of those things are about people. 2 of them are about technical staff, which if you're an MSP, you should be able to jump in and outsource those tasks to make sure that, their regular help desk people aren't being swamped because of a cyber incident, right? And then business staff losing productivity, while that's not a technical one, I think everybody loses when IT is distracted. And so if you can minimize distractions by reducing the cybersecurity incidents, or at least reducing the impact to the internal employees, IT or not, of those cybersecurity incidents, I think that's where you win. And I think that is a story that you can tell around that in terms of optimization and productivity. And not to mention the fact that you're keeping their technical staff on task, more focused, and less chance of burnout, which we all know is a real thing around here. Okay. Confidence is questionable for cybersecurity coverage across all asset classes. This one, I didn't pick up really anything too crazy in this one. Obviously, their confidence is high in a lot of things that they're used to, right? On-premise data, cloud infrastructure, endpoints, networking, on-premise software applications, cloud software applications, cloud data, because they've been working in those for a long time. I think IoT, it's probably one of those where they're not as confident. In fact, you can see the high confidence is lower, but the low confidence is also quite a bit higher than the one above it. So by this, you can see I don't think there's much difference across these things in their confidence of their cybersecurity coverage. And therefore, I think what that means for them is that they understand that they need to have coverage across all of these things, that they interact with on a daily basis. All right. Sorry, the voice gets a little bit dry on these nights when I'm doing these things by myself. By the way, if you want to be a guest on the show, let me know, because I have more fun when there's a guest on the show. These are great. I love doing these, but I do love it when we have a guest. Okay, so this one is around the data around skill level and improvement needs suggests lack of detailed skill awareness. And I think, if you look at this, not necessarily looking at the skill levels in the dark gray, but if you look at the need to improve, a significant need plus a moderate need on network infrastructure security. I mean, that one's like, what, 80, 93%, 93% say that they need, network infrastructure security skills in their business. And hey, Uncle Marv, thanks for showing up. Yes, getting guests is a hard dog. Actually, it's more the logistics around it. But Uncle Marv would know more than I do because he's been doing this longer. And by the way, if I didn't mention it at the top of the show, which I should have, I did. Okay. I almost thought I forgot. His show comes on at 8:00. So if you have not had your fill of MSP related content, I definitely recommend you going to that. I will definitely be catching at least the first part of that show because very interested in all the stuff that's going on in North Carolina right now. I am on the other side of the state, so we don't have those issues, but yeah, it's pretty bad over there. Okay, let's play how much longer can my voice hold out. But as you can see, all of these numbers don't vary that much from that first one, right? These are all in the 30%. These are all in the 50%. And even when you get down to automation and AI, again, another opportunity for MSPs, 49% and 43%. Again, that's 92%. Say that they have a significant or a moderate need to improve the skills. That means they're 90% of every single one of these, I think, if I did the math, have a skills gap that potentially an MSP could fill. That's the real opportunity here. And that's what I don't want you to lose sight of. Oh, and I underlined it. I underlined dead. Wow. English people, it's hard. This paragraph up here at the top that says third-party resources remain an important part of the resource equation for many firms, with approximately 1/3 of companies utilizing either specialized cybersecurity providers or partners that provide a variety of technology services, MSPs. Larger firms are more likely than their smaller counterparts to use specialized providers or consultants, pointing to an opportunity for technology firms servicing small clients to add more cybersecurity focused offerings to their portfolio. It's right there. CompTIA is saying it in black and white. There is an opportunity here to fill that skills gap. All right. Focused efforts are required to maximize efficiency and ensure long-term success. This basically just means that you need to bring things like visibility to executive leadership, right? You need to be doing policy creation and enforcement. Doesn't sound like an MSP job, but again, if you're focusing on business outcomes rather than just IT, then that's where that comes into play. Dedicated cybersecurity roles, definitely. You're not going to be able to do a lot of outsourcing unless you have dedicated roles to those skills. And so obviously focusing on that, better connection to business. Again, that speaks directly to focusing on business outcomes rather than just IT management. Focused reporting structure. Every organization needs that. I'm not sure how it applies to cybersecurity, but it's absolutely important for a well-run organization. And a well-run organization, I believe, is going to have less cybersecurity issues. and better metrics. If you're not measuring this stuff, and this is the conversation we were having with Wayne, if you're not measuring this stuff, how do you know that you're improving? And if you don't have a plan in place, you don't know where you're starting from and you don't know where you're headed to, you're never going to be able to figure out what your progress is. And you need to be able to show that progress. Otherwise, it's just a shot in the dark. Okay. A lot of other methods for retention, motivation. But that's stuff you guys can read when you open up the report. Now, methodology, I did want to cover this just so that you guys have an understanding of where this data comes from. A total of 525 professionals in North America participated in the survey, yielding an overall margin of sampling error at 95% confidence. Okay, that's good enough for me. This survey was also fielded at ANZ, Australia, New Zealand, ASEAN, Benelux, DACH, and UK, Ireland. Sampling error is obviously larger for those smaller groups. And you can see the sample size for those groups as well. Again, a lot of great information in this report. I really recommend that you download it. I put the link to it in the chat. So please, check it out. It's definitely worth it. It's something that I think all MSPs can do. And I think the biggest thing, if you get nothing else out of this report, is that there is an opportunity for you to outsource your cybersecurity skills to these businesses that need it. And it also means that smaller businesses who don't have internal resources and can't hire more expensive, specific cybersecurity firms, they're going to be looking to you, the MSP, to be able to handle these cybersecurity issues for them. And those issues are not as complex, right? So it doesn't take as much skills, but it's more skills than they have. So what do you think? If you're still on tonight and you're still watching, put some comments in there. Let's talk about it for a minute. Obviously, we only have a few more minutes before it's time for Uncle Marv's show. And we want to make sure everybody has the opportunity to go watch that. I really do, by the way, appreciate you guys coming and joining me every week. I know that I've seen people come in and out throughout the night. Uncle Marv, thank you so much for being here. Really do appreciate everyone who participates. And, if you're going to IT Nation, look me up. I'm going to be there. I'll be sitting outside wherever the podcasters and live streamers and people who do this crazy stuff like me are hanging out, doing interviews. So can't wait for that. So looking forward to it. It's November 6th, 7th, and 8th. I will be there, like I said, the entire time. And we do have a discount code for those of you who are interested in showing up, and it'll save you $250 on your ticket to IT Nation Connect. All right. Well, I think that is probably all we have for tonight. Thanks again for joining us, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a great evening. Hey, thanks for watching All Things MSP Live. You can reach me, Eric Anthony, at eric@allthingsmsp.com. If you're a guest, if you're a vendor, if you want to sponsor the show, let me know.